motherfuckers, you know?
Okay, I'm going to do a quick introduction and then... hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Not For Nothing. By the way, I hate this part. Thank you very much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. I am in Virginia. Actually, I'm going to let my guest introduce herself and explain exactly where we are.
We are in Chesapeake, Virginia. It is kind of a bedroom community of Virginia Beach. And it's a pretty big community here. It's a huge tattoo scene. Most of the tattoo scene is because of one person
right
in this area. J.D. Crow. And J.D. Crow made tattooing in this area. We may talk a little bit about him.
I think he's definitely going to come up a little bit because, not for nothing, like you said, you can't really... I don't think you can bring up tattooing in this direct area without. And with any luck, I'll be talking to J.D. Crow tomorrow. And you guys will get to see that immediately after this. Yeah. So, but in the meantime, you did not say who exactly you are.
I'm Annette LaRue. I'm infamous, I guess.
Okay, so that's a good place to start, actually, because the reason why I've known who you are is I think my first year of tattooing, a fellow named Tom Butler, who I worked with for several years, and worked for a couple of years. He knew who you were because of the individuals you were tattooed by back in the day. And that, for me, as a guy who'd been tattooing for about a year and a half, I was like, who is she? She got tattoos by whom? So, like, yeah, you started tattooing when?
I started my apprenticeship in 1989 in Daytona, Florida, just south of Daytona, a little town called Harbor Oaks, at a shop called Atlantic Tattoo. It was a lady tattooer. I had been getting tattooed by her. And she needed some help. And one day during the tattoo session, she asked me, would I be interested? And I was like, hell yes, I'm interested. Yeah.
So did you have was it like kind of was it considered a traditional apprenticeship? Like, did you actually have an apprenticeship, or was it something you just kind of went in and made it happen?
No, I think it was a real apprenticeship. She was a biker chick. She learned from a biker dude who ended up going to prison. They were from Kansas City. And he taught her so that she could send him money while he was in prison.
Oh, that makes sense.
So she did that for a little while. She was a great artist. She was an illustrator.
And this was where exactly?
This was in Kansas City.
In Kansas City.
Missouri.
So where are you from initially?
I was born in D.C. I grew up in Miami. I lived in Miami till 1978. And then we moved with my family to Mobile, Alabama.
Fuck Alabama. Fucking Alabama. Well, it's a different place now, so.
Yeah. Well, it was going from Miami, which is super mixed up, everything's there, to Mobile, Alabama, where everyone's white. There's a church on every corner. You could get drugs freely. It was a port city. And there was nothing else to do. So I got into doing drugs, and I got into partying and traveling around, and I got my first professional tattoo there.
Where did you get tattooed there?
I got tattooed. My first tattoo was at the Rats MC Clubhouse. There was a guy there with the tattoo gun, and he said, "Come here, girl, you want a tattoo?" And so I got one right here. It's covered, triple cover up.
Triple cover
up. It was a rainbow going around the sun. Joe, this guy did not know what colors were in the rainbow.
What year would this have been?
Oh, 77, 78, something like that.
So now, okay, so your apprenticeship happens in Missouri.
No. She left Missouri.
Okay.
She got a new boyfriend, Cindy, my teacher. Got a new boyfriend, and they moved to Daytona.
Oh, okay.
So she was trying to find a place to work. She worked for some guys at Southern Fried and then Southern Refried Tattoo, Wando and Gil and those guys. And then she wanted her own shop, so she moved to the other side of Daytona to be not near them. She didn't want to step on toes. It was serious then. You did not do that back then.
No, I mean, that's something I think a lot of kids today don't realize. Like, I mean, when I came into it, that was just dying off because there was a lot more to lose with these guys. I mean, they had legitimate businesses, and a lot of them had day jobs, you know what I mean? So I think that back then, nobody gave a fuck. Like, if you stepped out of line, you were made to pay.
Yes. Yeah, and I got a taste of that too. But she opened her shop. It was a nice small shop, just her and her husband. And I started coming around because there was a tattoo shop across the street I was friends with him, and I was like, let me check out this other place. And it was a lady, and she was super nice, and she talked to me, and I started getting a few tattoos from her. She could draw anything. My friend across the street couldn't draw shit.
Right.
And although I got tattooed by him and I liked him, I wanted something more. You know, it was around 1989. People were starting to notice tattoos could be more. Tattoo magazines, Shotzi, you know, and Roy Boy, they were on the covers with their work. Not them themselves, but the girls they tattooed.
That was at a time, that was a few years before I got into it, and that's when things started to change.
You could see they were artistic, and people were coming in with their own ideas, and Cindy could sketch it. She had a vast reference library she could reference things from, but Cindy didn't do regular tattoos.
What do you mean? What do you mean by regular?
Like she wasn't doing like traditional tattoos. She wasn't doing crosses with names and you know, just more traditional tattoos. She would put her kind of fine line spin on any tattoo.
So this is going to sound like a shot, and I don't mean it to, because my wife is a tattooer. But let me turn this off in case it goes off. But would you consider this the beginning of a woman tattooing? Back in the day, people would say, "Oh no, she's a good tattooer, but she tattoos like a woman."
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and she did tattoo like a woman. She did the fairy dust, like we like to call it, and the dots, and she used the pastel colors, and just everything she drew was kind of girly.
It had that appeal.
Yeah.
And again, it's funny because like back then, so there were two Cindys up north on Long Island.
Right.
And both of them, one tattooed very much like, I don't want to say like a dude, but definitely had more of a traditional upbringing. And then the other one, then you had Marguerite, who very much, her stuff was very female. God, everything sounds like shit.
It's not. It does. You know what? I'm a woman. I'm not offended. If other women are offended, that's their problem. Joe, you're telling it like it is.
Yeah,
it's a different time, and that's how it was back then.
Well, because it was one of those things like guys would go in, and they were either totally turned on and wanted to get tattooed by a woman because there was something cool to be tattooed by a woman, and then you had other guys who'd be like, I don't want to get tattooed by a broad. Like, why the fuck would I want to get that?
Well, I would stand there and sell a tattoo, and then they're like, okay, he's going to do it. I'm like, no, that's the guy that cleans the toilet. I'm the fucking tattooer.
That's amazing.
And I don't want to tattoo you now.
Exactly. So that's the other thing. So this is like late 80s, you said?
Yeah.
So how old were you when you started tattooing?
27.
Okay, so you were a little bit older. That's
older.
Actually, okay. So do you think that helped or hindered in the sense that like, because to be a woman in that day and age to do this, and again, this is later. This is like late 80s, so it's not like early 80s, late 70s.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you know, again, much more biker oriented, and you have a bit of a biker background.
I was a biker chick, and so was she and her husband, and one way I got in good with them was I would maintenance their motorcycles for them.
So that's a good thing, man. When you think about it, it's like you become one. I don't want to say you become one of the guys, but you definitely become a bit of a clique. Like, I mean, you're part of that whole clique.
I helped them out. I would wash her dogs. I made it. I didn't ever think it was something I could do. I never thought, oh, I'm going to be a tattooer. I just I like this person. We became friends. I would go stop by every Saturday on my day off, and she'd ask me to help her do things because her husband was disabled, and or her boyfriend, whatever he was disabled and couldn't do a lot of things. He had solid lifters on his motorcycle, and they needed to be adjusted. And I heard him talking about it, and I said, well, I adjust mine every 500 miles. I can totally do yours. Is your bike cold? I'll do it right now. You can watch me to make sure I know what I'm doing.
So you were definitely like a jack of all trades. Like you were actually in that whole thing. Yeah. I mean, how long did your apprenticeship last before you went here now?
It was 18 months with her, and I paid for my apprenticeship.
Oh, you did? Even back then?
Even back then. She didn't want to waste her time. She didn't want me to waste my time. And it was fair what she did. $50 a week. Every Friday, I gave her $50, $1,500.
This is something I've heard on a couple other people say, where when they do charge for an apprenticeship, they're actually charging, like they're doing almost like a rent.
Kinda.
Like you're paying like X amount of dollars a month or a week or whatever to kind of help offload it. And then 9 times out of 10, towards the end, they just, you don't worry about it. It's good.
Yeah.
You know, they just let it slide.
No, I paid all my money, and then every Friday gave her $50, and I worked 2 other jobs at the same time. So
well, that was a day and age where if you tattooed 9 times out of 10, you did have a day job back then, because it wasn't something. Tattooing wasn't what it is now, where people can just spend the entire, like, I'm gonna go to the shop at 9:30 in the morning, I'm gonna hang out till 9 o'clock at night, and I'm gonna make money all day. It's like, it wasn't like that. No. People came in usually after work.
Yeah, and she worked by herself, and she would maybe do 2 or 3 tattoos a day. Maybe during the week, maybe not so many. Maybe on Saturday she might do 4 or 5. And nothing real giant or big, and normal, just regular size tattoo, mostly biker stuff.
Right.
Every now and then she could do animals, which she could do realistically, and people were just wowed by that, because there was nobody doing that.
I was going to say, a lot of the portraiture back in the day, like in the late 80s, early 90s, was like, if you were able to do that kind of stuff, then it sets you apart, especially in the biker.
Yeah.
It's, at least on Long Island.
Well, and something that she was real good at is copying, like Frazetta and Boris Vallejo. She could really copy that style of work and make the women really beautiful, and big boobs and the curves and the details in the face and the hair, and just she could do hair really nice. And people hadn't seen that.
Right.
Especially in Daytona. Now, maybe they were doing that in California. Carrie Barba was doing that.
Carrie, I mean, at that time, I want to say you might have even had Judy Parker.
Maybe, yeah.
Who could draw like a motherfucker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But God, her tattooing left something to be
Well, everything was so small.
Exactly.
We had that flash when I moved on to the next shop, and we just blew it up.
Dude, her flash. It's funny. I reached out to her, God, it was 2-3 years ago. And the shops I always worked in always had it. And I just never thought I would need to get it. And I finally reached out to her, and I'm like, hey, do you still have any of this flash? And she's like, yeah, I do. Do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, let me know what you want. And no exaggeration, she sent me stacks of flash. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And the drawings are fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're absolutely
great
gorgeous.
Illustrator.
Yeah.
Great. I think it takes a lot of discipline to sit there and do that every day, too. And imagination. I don't have that kind of imagination.
No, she literally was capable of drawing anything. I remember seeing Cap at a convention. It might have been the Knoxville convention back in like the 98, 99. And I remember Cap being like, dude, I love working with Judy. I just let her draw something on the skin, and then I just fucking tattoo it. It's amazing, you know? She could do anything. She was so good. So good. So.
My lady liked her and liked Shotzi and that kind of work. Right. That was real cutting edge at the time. And I remember, it was kind of fine line in the late 80s and 90s. Fine line was really coming around. And then it's funny because immediately after I was done with my apprenticeship, I went down to Miami and worked at LaRue's. And Lou slapped a single needle out of my hand and said, you are lining with a 7 and you are using mags. And she had taught me fine line, single needle, 14 round shading.
Wow. So everything was rounds back then too.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know about, she didn't know about flats. So.
Well, that was a time too, like unless you got out and around, like there was no real magazines, unless you were really savvy and could do the due diligence to look at a magazine and figure out what people were using. Unless you went to a convention and actually sat down with somebody, very rarely.
They weren't giving nothing away back then. When I went to Lou taught me how to make mags and flats. He put a good tattoo machine in my hand, and I still have to this day. And I'm in love with that tattoo machine.
Nice.
It's wonderful.
So where did you get your gear back then? Were you making your needles?
Well, when I left Cindy, we were making I made all the needles for that shop. For the year and a half I was there, even for her guests, I made every needle. And she taught me to build machines by giving me a kit and then telling me to look at a regular machine. She got me a national kit, and I looked, and I'm pretty mechanical, so it was pretty good. I looked at it and I was able to kind of put it together. I didn't know why the spaces were where they were, or I didn't know why it was like that, but it was. And I put the capacitor on backwards. I didn't pay attention. And I'm tattooing one day during bike week. And she had already said, hey, there's going to be a couple clubs in town. We were right across the street from the Last Resort bar. And she said, if y'all hear gunshots, just duck.
Your gunshot.
So, because it could, it could happen. It's bike week. You never know. I'm tattooing with this crappy ass machine, and pow! The capacitor blows up. Everybody hit the fucking ground.
Everybody thinks there's a gunfight next door.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm the apprentice, and my machine blew up.
Nice.
So Lou eventually, he taught me the way to do it, and when I went down there the first time, he got 2 kits from Spalding, from Spalding. He made them cutback liners, and he made one for himself and one for me. And he was so mad because he said mine
ran better than his.
And it was yellow. He told me to pick the color for the coils, and I had this yellow sparkly stuff that I peeled off of a lighter or something. And he's like, this is terrible. Like, this color, this ain't a tattoo machine color.
And then it turns out it runs better.
It run better.
That's always the case.
And he was so mad. And I used that machine every day until the vise broke. Like, all Spalding frames, the vise sucks, at least back then. And then I got somebody to disassemble it, custom make a new vise, and put it back on.
So how long? So did you bounce around back then, or?
No, well, I went to work for Lou in the summer 1990, and I was there a good portion of the summer. Got to know a lot of people down there.
That was kind of the shop, man. Like he had a regular rotation of tremendous tattooers.
Great tattooers. I met Luis Segato.
Yeah.
Who did a beautiful tattoo on me back here. I did his laundry for 3 weeks.
Nice.
And he gave me the tattoo. He was fresh off the plane from Brazil.
Right.
And he didn't have anybody to take care of him. So I helped out with that. And let's see, I met Johnny, and I met Emerson, and of course Michelle. I met Wayne Gornto. And we remain friends these days. I'm friendly with all of those people.
That's
still.
the one thing I've noticed, like when I talk to Darren, which we'll eventually get to. We'll eventually get on air. But when I talk to him, just the cast of characters from that shop was so fucking impressive.
Yeah.
And again, like it just and it left such a genuine impression on everybody who ever worked there.
Well, my biggest impression was made by Troy Lane and Mikey Bada Bing. Mikey, his buddy. I got put over at the Kendall shop, and Troy, there's just something about him and the way he is. I just felt like I just wanted to blossom as a tattooer. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to tattoo like him. And at the time he did this beautiful tattoo, and he wasn't using a lot of shading.
Right.
But he was using shading in the background. I didn't understand that back then. I get it now. It's, but just the way he worked, the way he tattooed, the way he thought about things was just very classic and brand new to me.
Right.
And I just fell in love with it.
Well, so only being in the scene for a handful of years at that point, I would imagine anybody that you got to sit with or watch or get tattooed by, I mean, you would say that had a big influence.
Maybe, yeah. And I met Lou because he came up to work for her for Bike Week. And, Lou was the most charismatic.
I wish I never met the man. Because I spent all my time in the Northeast.
Yeah,
and
he was
a
down
lot
there.
of my friends worked there, but never made it down there.
He was, man, you talk about special. That guy, he would walk into the room, not even say a word. You just look at him and be like, that man is somebody.
So what's the difference between tattooers of today compared to guys like that? Zeke Owens from back in the day, fucking Crow, all these guys, like they had almost like a presence.
Yeah, no.
And not only, I guess a presence as well, but just the fact that they can attract certain individuals to them that were totally down with just working for them, just being part of their scene.
Yeah, and at that time, people didn't think, I want to do what Lou's doing. They wanted to be with Lou, doing what Lou is doing.
Right.
You didn't want to go off on their own and do it. They wanted to be there on South Beach in Miami with Lou.
You don't want to just it's not enough to just work for the individual. You really you have to be part of whatever is going on in that moment.
Exactly.
And that's the best part about being in a shop from back in the day. I don't think a lot of people of today, and I always make that comparison of like back then to today, but there is a big difference. Yeah. Not to say that those shops don't exist still. There are still shops that you just want to be part of everybody who's there, but it's not the same as it was back then.
because you have to be careful now. And I think part of charisma, maybe there's a little narcissism in there.
Oh, fuck
a little personality disorder and, you know, little peacock, you know, and that's attractive. I was a young girl. I was wide-eyed. I was fascinated with tattooing. I hadn't really been exposed to that many tattooers. I used to watch Gil tattoo in Daytona behind the bar. Not professionally, but it kind of started me getting interested in the people that do it, not just the tattoo. I had tattoos. I got my first tattoo and when I was a kid. I was 1978 in that Rats Clubhouse. So I was drawn to that. I was drawn to that lifestyle and the biker lifestyle, which it was back then. And then somebody like Lou, he was classy. He was trashy but classy, you know?
Trashy but
like,
classy.
The shit that would come out of his mouth. And he would call me all kinds of names. Yo, bitch, get over there. Go pick up my shit. And, you know, and I'd be like, yes, sir. Okay, Lou. And I remember one time I was tattooing and he walks in and he goes, yo, bitch, show me your tits. And what do you think the girls nowadays would do? You know what I did? Bzz. Yo, Lou, show me your dick. Oh, you are a dick. Bzz. You know?
Well, I
you
think...
just give it back.
So that's something that I want to hear, like, growing up, coming into the business as a female in that day and age, working amongst these guys, because there was no filters.
No.
There was no bullshit. There was no safe space. Okay, do you think you just looked at it from the perspective of, this is just the way it is, this is what I want to do, I'm just going to make it work?
Well, I was born in 1963. Men have been harassing me since I was 5 years old. Either for sex or for something or this or do that, wash this, clean this. You know, so I would be used to guys yelling at me and telling me what to do. You know, now, not really from my parents, but more like from uncles and neighborhood people. And while I never felt less than, my mother told me, you're a woman, you're as smart as those men. You can do anything those men can do. And you know what? You're better at it.
So you would say that this is, you don't want to say life building or, you know, but the fact of the matter is you're basically pushed into a situation where you have no choice. This is the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
deal with it.
Thank you. Deal with
it.
How much do you think people of today are missing out? I mean, I personally think that we just live in a different world, and these fuckers would be eaten alive.
Well, their parents, it's just like, and I love trans people, I love people, they do whatever they want. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a little boy. I wanted to be a boy so fucking bad. Women were boring, little girls were boring, they're over there playing with Barbie. I wanted G.I. Joe. You know what I mean? I wanted to do the things the boys were doing. I wanted to ride motorcycles. I said to my mom, can I be a boy? You can be a boy, but you know what? Girls are better. You're a girl.
So it was more about like, but the thing that's fucked up about that is, do you think it's just that wow, we're going down.
I know, we're going to get canceled.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is my life. You can't cancel me.
But that's my point. Like, I think, like, back then, you didn't have the options that you're given today.
Right.
There's a reason why more people in the United States, and I might be wrong on that, but there are more people in the United States making these transitions. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I totally am not. This is not me judging anybody. But back in the day, you dealt with the hand that you were dealt. You got the hand that you were dealt, and you made do with that. And there was never anything wrong with that. You could dress like a man. You could do whatever the fuck you want, but it wasn't a matter of like, I don't even want to go down there.
Well, what happened to me, Joe, is my mom said, you can dress like a boy, you can do boy things, but you're a girl. And just be glad you're different, you're a girl, you don't have that thing there to worry about. It's actually better for you. And I didn't understand it at the time. And then when I was about 16, 17, I was like, I get it. Okay. And it made me tougher. It made me able to see what boys do and see how they act and interact with them in a way that didn't hurt me.
Right.
Boys know they couldn't hurt me. They never looked at me like that.
Oh, well, like I said,
you know?
The reputation you had, and it wasn't, you know, the crazy thing is, I shouldn't say it was a reputation. Well, I guess it was, because guys admired you.
Really?
Because, the guy Tom and it wasn't because you were, you know, attractive, whatever. It wasn't that. I think they were admirable because at the time there weren't a lot of really heavily tattooed women that were also outspoken that could control, I don't want to say control a room, but when you came in, people took notice. And I think that's a difference between a lot of women tattooers of today, and there's more of them, obviously,
Yeah.
so they're not going to stand out the way that you did back in the day, and people like Julie Moon or Pat Sinatra or anybody like that, you know. I don't think that, you know, that those people stand out the same way, but they also are not the characters that you were back in the day.
And I've always been a character. I came out sassy. I've been sassy my whole life. Meeting Lou and Lou giving me permission to be that way did not help. He's the one that taught me to be a tattooer.
Well, that's the thing.
Act like that.
You become the product of the environment in which you're in.
Right.
Like, I mean, when you get to act out and be that person and be who you fucking are, there is nothing better in the fucking world.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, and my mom always told me, just do what you want to do. Be who you want to be. It doesn't matter. You dress what it doesn't matter. Which you know, in the 60s, that was something because, you know, but it happened to my mom. My mom wanted to be a truck driver in the 50s. And they said, no,
I was going to say, that's not something you could have done.
She could not do it, and she did not want to see that happen to me. She wanted me to do anything I wanted to do. Whether boys did it, girls did it, it didn't matter.
Right.
And she bought me that frickin' G.I. Joe.
Nice.
And then, you know what happened? Barbie ended up beating up G.I. Joe.
Well, I mean, coming out of your household, it seems like that would make the most amount of sense.
G.I. Joe had to live under the bed, and he drove a roller skate, and he drove away one day, and then Barbie was cool. I got the message as a young girl that women were weak.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily a message that a lot of women don't get. I just think that the day and age from then to now, and I'm not going to say that those bigotries, that doesn't exist today. You know, I would never say that. But I think back then it was a lot different.
It was.
And I think you really had to be that much stronger to stand out.
And my mom set me up. She set me up to be successful, and she set me up to not count on men to take care of me, which made me more independent, more confident that my words meant something. And a lot of the girls I was around weren't like that. And I didn't understand it. And I thought they were weak. They weren't weak. They just weren't like me.
No, and I think that's something that there's something to be said for that. But they probably weren't doing the same. I mean, did you have any other female friends besides the gal that you eventually worked with for a time? Were there any other female tattooers that you worked around back then? Not really, right?
No, probably, gosh, I'd have to think. Because I worked with Cindy. Oh, she did have a best friend called Vicky. Vicky Ernst.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
Do you know Vicky? Miss Vicky.
Oh, Miss Vicky.
Miss Vicky.
Yeah. Okay, so how weird is that?
So
I remember the name
you know
Vicky
her.
Ernst. Yeah.
So she was Cindy's best friend. And Vicky would come down for bike week, and she'd come down 4 or 5 weeks at a time with her young daughter. And I learned a lot from her. She was very confident. She was a good tattooer. She knew how to handle people.
Where was she from originally?
She's from up north, upstate New York. She's from Gloversville, New York. That's where she's from. Where the gloves used to be made.
Right.
Now, she just moved down to North Carolina. I saw her last year after not seeing her for like 25 years.
Oh, shit, okay.
Yeah, it was amazing seeing her. And, of course, she can't tattoo anymore. She's disabled, not able to do it.
She's got to be like probably in her mid to late 60s by this point, or
She's late
70s?
60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
She's still gorgeous. Still, tattoos look great.
That's
She's
amazing.
got good tattoos from everybody. She was the only other one. And then I met Jackie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then she was a female tattooer that wasn't somebody's old lady. Because back then, you were somebody's old lady if you were a tattooer.
Most of the women, most of the female tattooers got brought in by their, for lack of a better word, better half.
Their old man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or better. Yeah, so I've never used that phrase.
No,
I always thought it was the weirdest.
That's a biker thing. I know.
Old lady, old man. It never gelled. And like I said, my first year was in a sort of a bullshit biker shop, but it was always the weirdest thing to me to call somebody an old lady or an old man. So again, one of the things I know about you is you had your own shop. When did you strike off on your own? And was it in Louisiana first, or was it in Florida
Well,
first?
I was working for Jackie, and that was kind of coming to an end. It just wasn't working out as great as it was. So I had some friends that lived in Tampa that were like, hey, there's no good shops here. There was a biker shop, and then there was another kind of step above a scratcher shop. And she said, man, they're starving for good tattoos here. And this was in 91.
Okay.
At the end of 91. And
fuck, you've been tattooing a while.
yeah.
That's killer.
Well, no, wait, was it 91? No, 91's when I went to Jackie's. I'm not even stoned and I'm getting...
I was gonna say.
It was 94 when so I worked from Jackie's.
So that makes more sense.
Yes, 94. I left Jackie's, went to Tampa, blind, didn't know what I was doing. We found a storefront, we rented it. We had to lie and tell them it was an art studio.
Yeah, that was the thing back in the day.
I couldn't even get insurance. I had to lie and tell them it was an art studio. You could not get insurance. You could barely get a business license. And we opened, and man, it was balls to the wall. I mean, it was
just
crazy.
slammed right out the gate.
Out of the gate, it was insanity because it was in Ybor City in Tampa.
Oh shit! So back then, what was Ybor like? Because I mean, I know Ybor's gotten nicer. Yeah. But for a time, it was pretty...
No, it was rough.
It was sketchy as fuck.
You didn't go past this way, or you didn't go up north that way. You stayed right in the center. And it was all small businesses at that time. All mom and pop owned shops then. Storefronts were colorful and fun, and real people worked in there. And it was a cool place to be. It was kind of quiet. It wasn't like a big Saturday night place to go or anything like that. But within 6 months of being there, it started coming into
its own.
Yeah. It
was now, was this Blue Devil? This was
that was Blue Devil.
Blue Devil.
And I had blue hair at the time.
Is that where the name came from? I always wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. I had a friend that said, "You're not a person." We were talking about people, place, and things. He said, "Well, you're not any of those, but you are hell."
Nice, but you are hell.
And you got Blue Hell, Blue Devil. So that was it. And that's how we named it. And a couple of my good friends at the time came to work. John Himmelstein, great illustrator, just knocking it out of the park with the work he did. Cartoon type illustrations, right. Solid color, bold lines, building up bold lines. And he was kind of part of the start of kind of new school, because the way he drew was different. It was more comic bookish, and
was he local to Florida? Or?
He was from Daytona. He was actually, I think he went to school with Mike Wilson.
Okay.
And him and Mike were friends, and I think I met John through knowing Mike. But he had lived in Tampa, and he was working at some shitty shop, so we snagged him up. And I had another girlfriend, Amber, who was the piercer. And we did our thing, man. We were in there. We were in there from 1 o'clock till 2 in the morning, you know.
That was the time when that's just the way shops were.
We did every tattoo we could, and then we came back the next day and did it again, and loved it. Yeah. We loved it. And piercing was killing it. It was right after that Steven Tyler video came out where they pierced the girl.
Oh God, yeah, it was. I don't even remember what the fucking name of the song was. It was like crying. I don't remember.
It was some song. It was dumb.
Yeah.
And so we were doing 20 navel piercings a day.
And there probably weren't a shit ton of tattoo shops around you back then either.
No, there was Artistic Armor, which is gone now,
right.
And a place called Leather Tiger.
Tiger.
Which was kind of an S&M shop with a guy that did some tattoos in it.
Okay.
Now, I find out now the guy that tattooed there was a pretty decent guy. But the guy that owned the place was a shit. He was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to confront him for running his mouth about me. I had to go give him some facts. And I did. I gave him some facts. And I didn't get arrested that time. So, but it was the Wild West in Tampa.
So how long were you down there now?
I was there 4 years.
And when did you sell the shop and then make the move to New Orleans, or?
Well, so what happened, I kind of overlapped for a little bit. I had worked with Ernie and Lynn Gosnell at Jackie's briefly. They had come from Arizona, and Jackie hired them. And, of course, he was using 5s and 7 liners. That was too fat of a line for Jackie. She did not like that. And she and Ernie went round and round over that. And Ernie left and opened his own shop down in the next town down. And
that's amazing. Like how people, I mean, I guess it still happens. Like people just can't be down with something that somebody else is doing and how they're doing their thing.
And if looking back, if you were smart, you would want somebody like that does what you're not doing.
Exactly.
And now when I hire somebody, I want somebody that does what I can't do. I want somebody better than me.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. That's kind of that when you think about stuff like that. That's exactly what you would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, that you would want somebody who's capable of doing something that you just don't do, or that that you can learn from, or any number of things.
Well, I think that they were close to the same age, and I think that Jackie at that time, she liked to have a little more control over what was happening with her tattooers in her shop. She had young tattooers. She had me and 2 young guys that were, when I got there, one was 14 and one was 15.
Oh, wow.
And they were tattooing like crazy.
Wow, that's crazy young. Yeah.
Crazy young.
Shit.
Didn't know about tattooing, but were great illustrators. And Jackie put the machine in their hand and they figured it out and went to town.
Nice.
And one of them, Henry Rhodes, still tattoos in New Orleans, I think. And Fred, he was up in Vermont for a long time. I'm not sure where he is now. But Freddie was up there with Tyree for a while in Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ernie was kind of more of an equal to her because he'd been tattooing a long time, and I don't think that she was real comfortable with that at that time. So he moved down to Chalmette, and then opened another shop up in the uptown part of New Orleans. And we kind of stayed in touch as friends. I was still from Tampa. I would still go back and visit New Orleans and go and say hi to everybody. I got a call one day. Ernie says, me and Lynn are done. Lynn's ready to move back to Seattle. She got robbed. It was bad.
I was going to say,
ready to go.
New Orleans was pretty crazy.
It was
back
horrible. It still is. It's the best horrible place you've ever been. I mean, I love it. New Orleans is my muse. It's my home. I'll always call it my home.
I wish I had the balls to live there. My wife and I talked about it several years ago. We talked because she's enamored by New Orleans, and she knew who you were from that day.
I know. We were friends back in the day. Yeah.
And several years ago, we went there, and I'm like, maybe we should give this a shot. And we'll check it out. And we spent a little bit of time down there, and I'm like, I don't think I can.
It's too hot.
That is a legit thing.
It makes people crazy. It's a crazy, crazy town, and you have to jump in and be with it, because if you fight it, it's not going to be fun.
It's kind of like swimming upstream. If you give it any if you give it any force in the opposite direction, you're just fucked.
No resistance. You're just like on your back doing what it wants you to do.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, New Orleans was very good to me. Very good to me.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say, like, I knew Blue Devil, but I it seemed like you really, I don't want to say career-wise you shined with New Orleans, but that seems to be where, I don't know, it just seems to be where you made kind of a bigger name for yourself. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I started going to conventions, and I started kind of really getting out there a lot more and doing more guest spots, and I was frequenting San Francisco. I was getting into collecting tattoos a little bit more. And for 2 years, I commuted back and forth from Tampa. I had Amber was managing the shop for me in Tampa, and I had this other woman managing in New Orleans for a little bit, and that was going pretty good for me. And then all of a sudden, I was just my boyfriend in Tampa sucked at the time. I think he was cheating on me and spending my money, and I ended up selling my house, left him in the house. He left. He stayed there. They had to evict him. He had no furniture, a telephone and a bed on the floor.
Jesus.
And, I was done. I had to get out of Tampa. Although Tampa was good to me, too.
Did you sell the shop?
I sold the shop to a guy named Adam, who is not a tattooer, but he's a huge fan.
I'm a firm believer if somebody takes care of things in a certain manner, they don't have to necessarily be a tattooer. It's just scumbags that are...
He wasn't a scumbag, and he was very good to the people that I left behind, and I made sure that they knew if it didn't work out that they could come with me at any time. And John actually ended up coming out and working with me for a little bit, and Mike came out and worked with us out there too when we first got started. I had a lot of good friends that wanted to come do guest spots, and so
New Orleans, cool. It's a perfect, it's a great vacation spot. It's a great touristy spot, and it's a great place to spend a week and a half, 2 weeks. I mean, especially I think back in that day and age, you get a couple of fucking tattooers that are fucking degenerates.
Yeah.
I mean, you can lose yourself in for a week or two and
I've
still
seen
make
it.
money.
I've seen that city eat people up and spit them out. I've had to ask people to leave town because you're going to die. I don't want to watch you die, you know?
Yeah, that's one of those. So let me ask you a question. Did you drink and party back in the day?
I did. I've always been a weed smoker. I still am. But living in New Orleans, I had to quit drinking. I quit drinking in 2000 or 2001. I had an episode where I drank a lot the week before Mardi Gras. I didn't even wait for Mardi Gras.
That was I was gonna say. You just jumped head first.
It was every night. I mean, we'd get off work uptown. We'd go down to the bar. We'd go down to Coops. We'd eat and we'd drink.
Love Coops.
Yeah, how is Coops?
Yeah.
You know, eat and drink, and you know, back then everyone in the shop, we all hung out together. We were all friends. We all really liked each other. You know,
Right.
which is something that doesn't happen a lot today. People work together. They don't necessarily act like a family. Or always tried to make those people like my family. 'Cause I don't have my family anymore. These are my people now.
Well, it's funny. I don't want to jump ahead and go to the shop now, but that seems to be what you've got going on at the shop now. It's like you definitely have more of a, I don't want to say mother hen, but like you definitely want to be around the people you're working with. You know, it's not just a matter of coming in, punching a clock, and then just bouncing out.
Well, I get insulted if you work for me and you don't want to hang out with me. I'm sorry. I'm a little insulted because I'm pretty fucking cool and I'm pretty nice to you and I want to know you. If you're working with me, it means I like you and I want to know more about you and I want to spend time with you and I want to have a good time. I want to share my good times.
Right.
I want us to make memories together.
Right. Well, and you know, and there's something to be said for that. I think that a lot of shops lack the you know, that camaraderie and that family, and I shouldn't say I mean a lot. No,
yeah,
fuck
a lot
that.
do. A lot do.
Day and age, it's a lot of shops, you know.
Well,
and it sucks.
And I think a lot of that failed for me because after Hurricane Katrina, I had to hire people I didn't know.
Oh, for real? Okay.
And I'd never done that. I knew everybody. I'd pick up the phone. Hey, can you come? Do you want to come work? Do you want to move? I had people come from San Francisco, from Texas, from up north, from...
How hard was the quarter? Because I didn't think the quarter got hit that hard. I mean, everything got fucked, obviously, but I was of the impression that the quarter didn't get quite hit.
No, it never lost power, and our shop was right at the edge of the quarter. We didn't lose power, but for a couple days. Our refrigerator ruined the carpet. A brick came through the ceiling, and that's it.
Because you guys were you were in the French Quarter.
Frenchman Street,
Frenchman
which is right
Street,
on the edge of the quarter.
Okay, right. Yeah, see, I like the last time we went down there, we stayed just on the other side of, there's that other main drag
canal.
Yeah, maybe. I don't remember. But we stayed just on the other side of that. And that's the first time I'd ever gone into that shop.
Oh, okay.
Because I never knew where it was.
Yeah.
You were already gone at that point.
Yeah.
So
but it's still cool, isn't it?
Oh, no, it's a fucking super cool shop. It definitely is a super cool shop. Yeah. And again, just because of where it's at and... Again, you get caught up in the romantic version of living in New Orleans, and you don't realize the drugs, the alcohol, the fucking homelessness, the fucking crime,
degenerates everywhere.
Yeah,
and people go to New Orleans to reinvent themselves and to become who they want to be and to live out their fantasies. That's the problem.
Yeah,
is that nobody is real there. You know, even people that live there, they leave their house, they're in a mask, so to speak. They're in their persona.
So,
you know?
Okay, that's a good way. So this is completely off of what I wanted to talk about, but that's actually a really cool thing, thinking like the persona of being a tattooer. Like this, you create this, and again, there's a lot of guys that live it, and they're not the kinds of people that should be admired, I don't think. They're the ones the misogynistic douchebags that take advantage of women, take advantage of their position as being a tattooer. How many of those people, do you think you see more of those people now or more of those people from back in the day? Back in the day, I think it was more of like a heavy-handed, I don't think people were play acting it being...
No, they were really like that. Because that's what their dads and their grandpas were like, and that's who they were emulating. Nowadays, they're emulating what they see in the movies and on social media, and they're emulating people in the spotlight.
Right.
They're not learning that as little kids. They're really good people.
Right.
They just see some shit in a movie and they're like, oh, I should be like that. Or they try to emulate Scarface or whoever.
You get caught up in the facade of being a bullshit tattooer, and like you think that matters And it's not until you realize that you get called out on social media, and especially nowadays, like it's rare that anybody gets to pull that kind of stuff off right now.
You can't get away with it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, which is good for girls. I mean, girls don't need to be wolf called or whatever they call, whistled at, and you know, it's kind of degrading. You know,
No, most
I know
certainly.
guys think they're doing us a favor, telling us we're beautiful and whoa, your tits look great today. I don't want to fucking hear that.
So now, how have you not become a shop that doesn't attract more female tattooers? You would imagine only because of the fact that
Well, we had a chance to hire a couple of females, and I want to hire females, and if they're good, and in New Orleans I did have female tattooers. A lot of my best friends are female tattooers. They just don't, young female tattooers don't want to work like we work. Like
I'll give you that.
We go in at 11, we wait for the tattoos to come in, and when they come in, we do them. We don't schedule them for later. We do them right then.
But I mean, I would imagine you would have a hard time finding even male tattooers, old, young, whatever. I think young makes more sense to get young, and it seems like you have a pretty young crowd. But I think most people don't really want to do that. I mean, I don't do it anymore, in all honesty.
The people I hire, that's the type of tattooing they want to do.
Right.
Like when Steve and I moved here, there was a guy. We inherited two people. One guy was retiring from the Navy, and he was kind of dabbling in tattooing at the time, and we tried to help him get better. And he eventually did, and Crow took him back.
Oh,
so he went, you know. And then the other guy was just a scratcher. We caught him with booze, and Steve reveled in
I think
fire.
I remember you telling me like there was somebody you had to let go because it didn't work out.
So it was me and Steve.
Yeah.
We were trying to run the shop, which we can do all the tattoos that come in between the two of us at the time. But we went down to Jacksonville to visit Angelo, and they had a piercer there named Chris Williams. And Chris, we were all standing around talking. Chris said, I want to learn to tattoo. And Angelo's like, I'm not teaching you to fucking tattoo, loser.
I fucking love Angelo.
I know.
God, I fucking miss that fucking guy.
So good.
Oh, fuck.
And he looks at me and says, you can teach him to tattoo, Annette. You can polish this turd. And I was like, send me a set of flash. Send me 10 sheets, and we'll talk about it.
So he was capable of drawing. He was able to, or did he have just a basic?
I think he was very basic. He had been a piercer at Inksmith for 7 years.
So
and
he's kind of used to being around it.
He knew it. He knew what good tattoos were. He dabbled a little bit, tried to draw, and tried to maybe do a couple tattoos. I don't want Angelo to know. He might get in trouble. But he was interested in it, and he was dedicated. And he sent me 10 sheets of flash. And I looked at it, and it was very basic. It was Sailor Jerry designs, very basic. But everything was in the right place. It was solid. He took his time to do it. And Steve and we were desperate. We needed somebody. We couldn't keep the shop open, the two of us. We had 2 dogs at home.
It's a lot.
I was 52 when we moved here. I was fucking tired.
How did you and Steve get and I don't want to jump off because we haven't left New Orleans yet,
right.
But how the hell did you and Steve get together? Because he was in Philly.
Yeah, so doing conventions, I always saw their booth, Old City booth. I saw him and Marty Lacoste. I was such huge fans of their work.
Yeah, I met Martin. So I got tattooed by Martin when he was apprenticing. My very first big road trip was to North Carolina. I went to Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, my friend's place. I went to Tennessee, where I eventually would get to know my wife. And then I went to North Carolina when Angelo was managing over at Port City.
Oh, okay.
In Wilmington. Yeah. And Martin was in towards the end of his apprenticeship. And I got a tattoo by Martin that first trip. It's still fucking drop dead gorgeous. Martin is a tremendous tattooer.
And such a nice person.
Nice guy.
Like super cool nice dude. But I was huge fans of that whole shop. I bought flash from Drew, from Josh Huffman, from Dave Fox, Steve, from their boss, Jason Goldberg.
Dude, for a time,
powerhouse.
That shop was the shit.
It was
Philly.
the bomb. I had one wall in my Electric Ladyland New Orleans shop. Huge, the biggest wall was nothing but Old City flash. All their stuff. And we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. We had all that flash. People were like, what do you want to do? Pick off that wall. That's what I want.
It's like you want to do anything. It's anything off that wall, and you're guaranteed a good tattoo.
Guaranteed, and I'll do it, and I'll have fun, and so just being his fan, and let's see, it was a Philly convention, and we were both married to other people. I was married to the drummer, and he was married to his baby's mama. And I said, "Where's a good place to go eat on Sunday night?" I had Miss Deborah at the time was with me. My friend Renee, who got tattooed by you at that shop. She's the New Zealand girl, the Maori girl.
Oh shit! Yeah, okay.
That was my girl.
Yeah.
So it was us and a couple other girls, and we didn't know where to go eat. And I said, "Steve, where can we go eat around here?" He said, "I'll take you." And cool. So he took us. He didn't even sit near to me. He sat down on the other end, and then Renee had a tattoo to do in the room after dinner, so Steve came back, and we were just hanging out, smoking weed, watching Renee tattoo.
That was the best thing about shows.
And I was checking out his tattoos, and we were just friends, honestly. We admired each other's work and each other, and that was it. And I knew he was married. He had a young child at home. He left that night. We were friends. And a couple years later, he calls me in New Orleans. He hit me on Facebook. We were still on Facebook. He hit me. He said, "I'm coming to Dallas. Do you still want to get tattooed by me?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to get tattooed." I had this little design I'd been holding and just never had time at the conventions to get tattooed. So I drove up to Dallas. And then before I left, he said, "Oh, Richard Stell works here and he's taken off. Do you want to work for him this weekend?" I packed my shit and I drove up there and I worked in Richard's spot and I had a great time. I had to clean that whole station.
Oh, God, yeah.
But after I cleaned it, I was able to work and we had a great time. And then that night, we all went out and we're just having a good time. I don't drink. Steve was drinking and he looked at me and I looked at him. And we were both split up at this time.
Right.
We were both split up from our spouses. And then, boom, the arrow hit us. And I invited him back to stay with me that night, and he did. And, I had split up from my husband about 6 months prior. I hadn't had sex in a long time. I was in my 40s. I was 41 or 2. Y'all know anything about women? Women in their 40s are the hottest women you'll ever get. You young guys, you guys think young women are hot? You get you a woman in your 40s, you will die in heaven. There's nothing better. Anyway, public service announcement.
Exactly. All you guys.
I tell all the guys at my work, you guys are going for these 19, 20-year-olds. They're airheads. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to fuck. Come on. You get a girl in her 40s. She know what she's doing.
Well, she's been around.
She's going to put it on you, exactly. Okay? You're going to be starstruck. So I guess that's what happened to Steve. And he kind of rocked my world, too, to be frank, because... it was wonderful. And I was happy. If this is a one-night stand, it's cool. He called me, and we had so much in common. We were kind of close to the same age. We grew up liking the same kind of things. We had the same type of parents, and we just had a lot in common. And he was kind. He was not misogynistic. He was raised by his mom and sisters, pretty much.
That's a big deal in this industry.
It's huge. And he had a daughter, and he was good.
That's
it's huge. Yeah. And he was kind to his ex-wife. I got to watch
How
him.
often have you heard from dudes especially in this business, motherfucker?
Yeah. Nope. He never talked bad. He would mumble a little bit. But he was never mad at her, and it gave me a lot of respect for him, and just his work ethic. It just gave me so much respect.
Nice.
We were long distance 8 years.
I was going to ask you, how long were you on? Because that's a long.
It's a long time.
My wife and I, she was in Chattanooga. She owned a shop in Chattanooga, and I was in Connecticut. I was in New York at the time, mm-hmm. And I think we did the long distance thing for almost 2 years.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
but it worked for us because he had his daughter at home. He had his time.
He couldn't just up and go regardless. No,
but he would come down for a couple weeks or a week, and he was able to work and make money, so he wasn't missing money.
That's always been so. That's a big deal with being a tattooer and being in that kind of a relationship, mm-hmm. because that was the thing with me and my wife when we got together. It was like I would go down there and work at her shop and work a couple of days, and then we'd spend 5-6 days hanging out, and then I'd go home, or she would come up north, or we would both fly to someplace.
Right.
And if I could work for a day or two, because back then it was easy to get a place to work.
Right.
And at the very least pay for the trip, hang out, have time together. It was amazing back in the day,
Yeah. And we would meet at conventions. You know,
That's
we
a
met
great
in
thing.
Seattle. We did the Long Beach convention together. We did Seattle convention. We did a bunch of other ones. I can't remember, but yeah, and I didn't want it to happen. I didn't, you know, and it just did. And
You fought it.
one day you're just like, damn, okay, this is all right.
So how did you guys end up? Like, did he go down there, or did you guys end up just coming straight to Virginia? Like,
Well, I sold my shop, Electric Ladyland. I sold it to a guy who worked with Ed. And
does he still own it?
He still owns it, and he's actually doing very well with it, better than I was doing. He's more money minded, a little more business minded. And he's a good artist, a good tattooer.
Right.
And he used to be a NOPD, so he's got that kind of stuff under his belt. He was a tattooer. I worked with him at Jackie's.
Right.
He quit tattooing, did some NOPD stuff. He was a detective, a murder detective.
Oh shit! So that's kind of a good thing to have down that.
He's smart. He knows people.
Good background.
You know, and I knew he would keep it going, and so he took it over. I moved an hour north and bought a tubing and kayak rental place.
So okay, I couldn't remember if you said that took place up here or down in New Orleans, down in Louisiana.
It was in Louisiana. It was on the Bogachita River. Most fun I've had. Oh, it was so fun. I mean, gators and possums and armadillos. I saw otters. Turtles, just every day. It was something.
So you're like a total proper fucking Southern girl.
I'm a redneck. I'm
that was the polite way of saying it.
I'm an urban redneck, okay? Because I do like the city, but I am Southern as fuck. I'm country. I can fish. I can hunt. I don't want to kill animals. I don't like it.
Right.
If I had to survive, I definitely could. I feel like if I was on one of those shows, Naked and Afraid, I would do pretty fucking good.
I was going to say, you get close to the end.
Yeah. I'll eat plants. I know what plants to eat. You
Right.
know, I grew up in Florida, so they teach you that survival shit. And, yeah, I'm an urban redneck.
Nice. So you took some time away from tattooing then?
Yeah. And I still had a little studio in my house.
Well, I would imagine you would have had some kind of a clientele that was going to still continue to get tattooed by
Yeah,
you.
well, a lot of my workers wanted to get tattooed, so
Nice.
I tattooed them. And, but some friends would come into town. Permanent Mark came up there.
Oh,
Him and his
shit.
wife and
Nice.
kid took the river trip. Lester and Maddie Runks came up and saw me up there. And my real friends, people that were really important to me, came up there, and we had a great time.
Nice, that's
It was
sweet.
good, but that's hard too.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
It was hard because the town I was in, Bogalusa, Louisiana, has more drugs than New Orleans, and there's only 30,000 people in Bogalusa.
Well, it's Kentucky and Louisiana's up there too, with like just
drug use?
Yeah, drug use and just a lower class of human
Bogalusa is a place where most people hang out in their granny's trailer until Granny gets her pills once a month. And then they get Granny's pills. They sell half of them. They do the other half. Or they'll steal and do the other half. Whatever. It's a huge drug town. It was hard for me to find sober people to work.
Oh, I can imagine. That's got to be a hard thing.
We had buses. You had to drive buses. You had to pull people off the river. And it was hard to find reliable, good people. So I sold that. I took a loss, but I didn't care. Because
I think to have a job like that, to have a business like that, it's more for the love of it than I would imagine than it is.
And I loved it. Oh, I got my CDL. I was driving the buses. I drove a tractor. I freaking loved it so much.
That's
great. It was the happiest time of my life, really, as an adult. But I just couldn't get good workers. Steve did not want to come down. And it was hard in that part of Louisiana being a single woman. It was all the men.
Oh.
You know, I heard you ran a massage parlor down there in New Orleans. It was like, no, not quite. Like, you wish it was a massage
So you
parlor.
got to be a certain type of woman to be able to deal with that on a daily.
Dude, those guys did not know what the fuck they were dealing with. They'd never seen a woman like me. Tattooed up with that weird hair. What are you doing? What's that in your mouth? You know, what, were you chewing something? No, I got gold teeth, motherfucker.
It's like, I got more than you'll ever have.
Yeah, right? That costs more than everything you own, bitch, you know? Sorry, but... And then they I try to be friendly with some of the locals around there and stuff, but we weren't the same. You know, they were real country. Like,
I would imagine that's kind of those got to be kinds of neighborhoods that, like, if you didn't grow up there and if there's no reason for you to be there, then it would be a hard place to live.
It was hard, and it was also hard because I was making money putting people on the river.
Yeah.
I owned the property where they got out of the river. They'd come park. I would take them in a bus 6 miles up the river. I owned that property too.
So you were able to. They would plop in their things, go all the way down the river, and then they would just get their cars.
Yep,
and you grab your shit and go back.
But the problem was at the drop-off point, people lived up there, and they saw me bringing busloads of people.
Oh.
At $15 a pop or whatever. They were counting my money and getting mad.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was nice to them, but I wasn't giving them things.
Right.
Like they thought I should give them things. And so they got mad. And I wouldn't fuck none of them. That made them even madder. And I told one guy, you're just mad I won't fuck you. Like, do you want to fuck? Because I'm not fucking you. You got to go home and fuck your wife.
That's incredible, too, because it's like one of those things that's like, it's like small town mentality, but it's like, where the hell could this possibly go?
Like, I'm going to bend over and let you, with your dirty fucking dick, touch me? Are you fucking crazy? And I said it to his face. You're just mad I won't fuck you. And boy, I could see the steam coming out of his ears. He was mad. He tried to hit me with his truck.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, he tried to hit me. And I was like, whatever, motherfucker.
So did you own the house and everything that
Yeah.
while you were down there? And that's all gone now. You got rid of it.
I sold everything.
Yeah.
I had 6 buses.
Damn.
A Dodge Ram.
So this was a legit shit.
Was real. It
wow.
was real. It was real business. It made real money. It was.
Was it mainly like tourists that were coming through? Or?
No, it was locals.
Wow.
Because it was.
That's actually impressive. I didn't know that.
No, Louisiana doesn't have a beach. There's no beach.
That does make sense. It's going to be all lakes and rivers.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was mostly rural people, a lot of redneck, a lot of country southern people. We were near Kentwood. People would come from Mississippi. People would come from all over, and we did get a good bit of tourists too.
Yeah.
We had some like real Chinese people out there, and they didn't know what to do. We had to try to tell them how to do everything. It was fun, and I got to, I just got to be outside all day. I got to enjoy plants and animals and things I really, really like.
Nice.
And I'm sad that it didn't work out. I feel like it's a major loss in my life.
But to have that in your life at some point was pretty...
I had it. It's some of the greatest memories I'll ever have. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Because I sold that and I left and I had to move in with Steve. I moved to Philly.
So how long were you in Philly for?
10 months.
Oh, so it was a very short period of time.
Now, Steve and I owned a house in Philly. We had bought a house together when we first year we were together. He was trying to rent, and I was like, why don't we just buy something together? Like, I trusted him.
You have a place to go whenever you're there.
Yep. And let's buy a duplex. I wanted to help uplift both of us.
Yeah. I
had a little money from selling, and so we bought a place together, and he stayed there, and he was the landlord. And so when I left Louisiana, I moved up there with him. We lived in South Philly at 9th and Federal.
Nice. That's
in it.
Super cool.
You could see Pat's and Gino's from our living room.
Nice.
And I had never lived up north, Joe. I'm a Southerner.
Well, especially being in a city like Philly, because Philly's, I'd say that's an acquired taste. Like, yeah, that's an acquired taste. It's the people in Philly, like they call it they call people the friendliest people or whatever the hell it is, the city of friendship. Isn't that what it's called or something like that?
I don't
know.
It's
just a bunch of angry motherfuckers.
I got jumped by 2 Muslim chicks there. Like, what? Jesus. Like, when a Muslim jumps you, that's bad. They're not even supposed to touch you, Like, they jumped me. They didn't get me.
So 10 months, I mean, what made you, what was the why did you leave? I mean, did you just decide there's no way I'm living in Philly?
Well,
we need to figure something else
out. Well, I started getting antsy. I wasn't tattooing. I wasn't making any money. My dad had died and left me a little bit, so I was okay. I didn't have any bills. I was good, but I was a tattooer, So they had the Band of Nothing. I think that's a real band.
Yeah.
They're from Philly. They were doing some kind of record release party at Old City, and they were doing tattoos related to their record release. Old City to do a tattoo party too. And Jason Goldberg called me and said, hey, you want to come help out? Because all my guys have appointments. You know, we're running the shop.
Right.
And I said, yeah, I'll come in. I'm good at stuff like that. You know, like the Friday the 13th stuff. And, you know, which I hadn't really done. I did one. But I knew I could do it, you know. And so I went down there, and there was 100 kids waiting to get tattooed. It was exciting. They were cool little designs, you know, little black and gray
little
designs.
bangers and stuff.
Yeah. I did 40-something tattoos that day.
Damn, that's fuck.
I hadn't tattooed in a shop in 3 years.
And that was your first running into a thing? That's a legit way to get back into it.
Those boys were like this. They could not believe a girl could tattoo like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I set up and I break down. I don't fuck around.
Well, you come from a different day and age.
That's right. That's right.
Different day and age.
And those boys saw it, and they were like, damn. And I was like, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. I didn't want to work anywhere in Philly. There was no shops I was interested in working in. I didn't know anybody. I'm not really a custom tattoo person, you know, like I do custom stuff.
There's a fair amount of straight up street shops in Philly.
Well, I didn't know about them.
Well, that's true, yeah. And again, Philly's also like one of those things, like, I don't think it's got the warm and fuzzies when it comes to other shops.
And I was Steve's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of places I couldn't go.
Yeah.
You know? Steve raised the bar for me, you know? I can't just... if it was me, I'd go work at Popcorn.
No, and that's the thing. You don't want... Exactly. You don't want to... you want to keep a certain... you know, respectability to the shops that you're going to be in. And there's a lot of whatever fucking shops.
And to me, I didn't care. I would go in. I'll tattoo anywhere. I'm a tattooer. But Steve was like, no, you're not going anywhere. Yeah. Okay, I gotcha. So I saw Scott Sterling had a post on Instagram. We need work. We need help this summer. Anybody want to come down? We need you for 3 weeks at a time. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I called Scott. He was like, come on. This is a walk-in shop. It's ancient art. Come on.
Did you know anything about Virginia or anything?
No.
Or not really?
No.
And this area, especially in Virginia, because it's like, it's the military bases. It's a lot. It's got its own little colleges and everything. Yeah. But it's not like, it's like old school. Yeah. Old school.
Well, my friend Chad Chesko had worked somewhere over near Richmond or somewhere Arlington, somewhere like that. I'm not positive. And I visited him, and I remember we were in Virginia, and I remember thinking, why would anybody come here for a tattoo? And you had to they had all these rules and laws, and I was like, I would never like this. But I went to Virginia Beach. I stayed with Scott and his wife. They were super. I loved the shop. I met Crow, who was my idol, you know.
I was going to say, for back in the day, I mean, if you knew anything about shows and stuff, mainly so my introduction to him was obviously the tattoo conventions, more so than anything with tattooing.
That's all I knew him as.
Same here.
And I went to all those shows back then, you know. I worked for about 2.5 weeks. And then Scott said, you know, Crow's got a shop for sale. And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I just sold this other shop. I'm not really into it. And if I did, it would have to be small, like a 3-man shop or something. Well, he's got one out there for sale. You ought to go check it out. And I said, well, take me out there. So Scott brought me out there.
This is some old school shit, too, when these older guys would just be like, well, you should come here. Yeah. Like, you know, they used to say the same thing about, like, tattoos, you know, by Lou. Like, he would try to get people to move to Miami for that, you know, the same way. Yeah.
So I went to the Chesapeake shop, and it was pretty bare bones. It was all J.D. Crow Flash, which was fine. But it didn't have any decorations because the people were just working there. It was nobody's home, really.
No, and I would imagine a shop like that by him. And again, this is no slight against J.D., but I can see people just being like, they're more of a clock puncher than anything else.
And it was out in Chesapeake. That was kind of where people that were in trouble went, or maybe people he didn't want to see.
It was kind of like the gulag.
Because he had his Virginia Beach shop, which was beautiful, gorgeous, custom, everything, all his beautiful old prints and originals and stuff. And then there was Chesapeake. Well, I was out there a day, and the people that came in were thirsty for good tattoos. They didn't... A lot of the other shops around here are appointment only. They're only doing big things. They're only doing their thing. There was no place you could really go besides the other J.D. Crow shop, which was across in Virginia Beach. Right. There was no place out here where you could get that kind of tattooing. And I went home and I said, Steve, there's this shop there. Man, I think it was pretty cheap. I said, I think we could do something with this place. And I came back down for another 2 weeks. I happen to have a friend here, so I stayed with her, and I worked for 2 weeks, and that was it. It was like I could see. Just me being there, people were telling people to come back.
So it was more about the business than it was about the surrounding.
Yeah, I didn't care about this area. I didn't know anything about it. I knew there was a swamp nearby. I grew up in Florida and Louisiana. Swamp? Okay, I can live
here. It's practically fucking Florida.
It's almost the same, Swamp. And Steve came down, worked for a week, and we killed it. And we had people coming back in that week. And then we left, and people were still coming in trying to see us. We were doing tattoos like they didn't see out here,
Well, that's, again, so the time that I came out to Virginia Beach was back into Norfolk, actually, I believe. And I worked at a shop that Andy Chambers and Jason Lawyer had owned. And I was here for like 4 days, I think. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was really nice. But it is it's very transient, I think.
It's very transient. There's a lot of northern people here. They think Virginia's a southern state. I'm southern, okay? Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida. That's southern.
Virginia comes off as being, it's like on the cusp. It's the
line.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's more Yankees here. And there's more Midwestern people here than real southern people. Now you got your old-timey Virginia people,
well, this isn't West Virginia. Like, West Virginia is that's like straight up boondocks kind of shit.
Yeah, okay. No, Chesapeake we're like, suburbs. Yeah. I live on an acre. All the houses here have an acre or two. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for us here. I didn't know that in the beginning, but I knew I prefer rural living, but I didn't want to be 30 minutes outside of the city either. Right. So this is perfect. We got an acre. It's an nice older house, and it's a mile from the shop.
I was gonna say you're close to anything. You can walk to the shop if you chose to.
Yep.
You ride. You both you guys ride. Yep. So I'm assuming that most of the any of the places that you're gonna ride, they're gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, and you can ride all year here in Virginia. Right. Steve rides all year. I don't ride that much anymore. I don't enjoy it like I used to, but I got a lot of great memories of riding. So
nice.
And when I do ride, I like my little dirt bikes now.
Oh, nice.
Slower.
Okay, that's good. They're slower. Nice.
Yeah.
Slower and a bit more dangerous.
No, I go slow.
Well, so I think what I want to try to end on, and I don't want it to be heavy, but and it's not going to be about like you personally, but it's going to be about like the general census of the general feel that you get for what's happening in the business now. Oh. You've been at it. You've been doing this since 1991, right? Shit's changed a lot, and you've got a young tattooer in there now that you guys started apprenticing a few years ago. So you get to see. It's not like you're just dealing with older generation people. You're dealing with young kids in your shop. Yeah. Where do you see this is going? Like, do you think that we have, as aged tattooers, do you think we're going to have a place here, or do you think or you think the fucking business is just going to be fucked?
Well, I think for us here, we'll probably be okay because of the Navy bases. They're going to always want tattoos. Now, the volume's going to slow down. When I'm in the shop, my skills, they don't give a fuck about my skills. They want that young person that can relate to them.
Yeah.
When somebody thrusts the phone in my face, I'm offended.
Yeah.
Not greatly. I'm not a snowflake, but I'm just like, man, I've got thousands of sheets of Flash. This is the same as Flash, people. It's the same as Flash. Yeah. It's just 2024. It's the same as Flash.
I don't think anybody looks at it from that perspective. Because back in the day, people would be like, I don't want anything off the walls. Yeah. Somebody else has already got that. And I'm like, well, dude, you look at the stuff on the walls now, it's
on Pinterest. Exactly. Who do you think has it?
Billions of people.
Like, I was tattooing something on somebody. I was like, yeah, this is like the 47th one I've done. And they were shocked. And I don't care. I'll do it over and over. That's my job. It's my job to give people what they want.
Right.
And, people are always like, thank you. I'm like, no, thank you, because without you, I can't do what I do. I notice at conventions, I'll ask people, oh, are you a tattooer? I'm just a collector. And I said, you're not just a collector. Because of you, I get to do what I want to do.
Right.
Every person here depends on people like you.
Yeah.
And he never thought of it. And I saw him. He stood up a little straighter. He was like, I'm a collector, you know?
Well, there are people who recognize that, and there are people who don't. It's the ones who over recognize it that tend to,
Yeah. Well,
we tend to hate.
Well, now it's a fashion thing.
Yes.
It's just like wearing the right jeans, or I got to go get my tattoo. And I think half of these people getting tattoos don't even want them or deserve them. I want to tell them to turn around and get out.
Right.
Especially when they start micromanaging. It's like, you have got to have total trust. And they don't know what that is. Their parents didn't teach them how to trust.
No clue.
Their parents didn't teach them how to anticipate. Now, I gotta have it now. And our shop is one of the only ones around us that does walk-ins. You can walk in and within 20 minutes be in the chair.
That's crazy to me, because you would imagine that shops in this area would be welcoming to fucking walk-ins. I mean, I get some of the other shops that are more about like the custom work, whatever. But I mean, even you would imagine that they you strike while the iron's fucking hot out here.
No, they don't. They do 2 tattoos a day. One at 11 and one at 3, and they're booked for 3 months. But you know what? I'll do 6 tattoos that day, and I'm not booked ever, but I'll do tattoos every fucking day.
Right, exactly.
As soon as they walk in and want them. Now,
it's crazy. Even by us, like, we're technically a custom shop, but we have it on our Google page. Everything else says walk-ins welcome, and we get more people that they'll see that walk-ins welcome. Then they'll go to our Google rating, they'll go to our fucking Yelp review, whatever, and they'll be like, oh, they're a good shop, and I'll go there. Yeah. And it's got nothing to do with the reputation of the shop. It's more about, they can take us in.
Well, I think some young people think that if you're not booked out 3 months, you're not good.
Oh, that's a legitimate thing.
No, you're fucking lazy.
Or worse, yeah, well, there's that.
You only want to do 2 a day.
Or there's worse, is like you get people that think that, you drill company anchor, you're probably booked out like a year in advance, and you're expensive. And I'm like, okay, you know nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
So, but that's it's interesting to see, because of the shop that you're in. You would imagine that, like you said, you've got the military bases, you've got the colleges around here, so you would imagine that's already kind of a built-in clientele. It's interesting to see what your thoughts are on where you think this is all going to end.
I can't predict it. You used to could predict shit in tattooing.
Yeah.
You knew every weekend on Saturday you'd be busy. I just hope that our shop just keeps going and can do a couple tattoos a day to keep these people fed and to keep these tattooers.
Well, like you said, you got another generation coming down the pipe with working in your shop. People you've brought in, people you've brought up here from Florida and California and stuff like that.
And we're lucky that the people that we work with want to work in the traditional classic American tattoo shop.
So that's funny
when
you said what the shop used to look like before you used to, like, when you walk into the shop now, it's literally like stepping back in time, in the sense that it has the vibe and the feel of an old school, old world shop, which is something that's kind of lost in a lot of newer shops, obviously. And it is really cool to see. Like when you walk in there, you feel like, oh, this is fucking sweet. I'm digging on this.
Well, and something Steve and I had to be careful of is making it like a homage to the 90s, because we have so much 90s stuff.
Yeah.
And, we were putting it on the wall. It's like, this is 90s. Like, we need to modernize. And even now, I said the other day, I want to get some more new, modern tattoo flash and stuff
all
on
the
the
flash
walls.
that you have out there is, for the most part, is the stuff I came into this
dated
with. And but I dig that.
I
get how certain people would walk in and just be like, yeah, I can't.
Well, and I want to do it not necessarily for me, but I got to think about the guys that are working for us that are there every day in the trenches.
Right.
They're younger. They want this Instagram exposure. So I pay a lady to come once a week. She films us. We do little skits, and then she puts them together, and I post them. People love that shit. They love it.
Now, do you see stuff coming back because of that stuff, or is it right now just like, internet, pats on the back?
Yeah, I think it's pats on the back, and it's in person. People tell me, oh, I love it, and the guys love doing it, and they like their faces being out there. 2 of my guys hate it and will not barely do them, but I'm doing that for the kid. Like, I had to tell Steve I want to do this. He's like, what? And I was like, we're doing it for the kids that work for us.
You need to keep these guys into it, otherwise they're just going to, because another shop could offer it to them and they just fucking jump ship.
And they will. People, they don't realize that that's bad manners. to do that, to
Oh,
go
that
from
doesn't
shop to shop.
that doesn't exist
It
anymore.
doesn't matter.
Like I
Doesn't
had
matter.
I had a conversation with Paul Booth a couple of months ago, and he was just that was something he was so because he feels like you go to work at certain shops, you get certain accolades, you get you certain favors that you may not have gotten on your own, and now all of a sudden it's like you fuck off the moment you make a name for yourself. And again, it is an old school way of thinking. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just think that maybe you shouldn't you shouldn't take too much credit for somebody else's career, but they should also understand like you were the foot in the door.
You gave them
whatever.
a foot up, leg up, and I've done that for a lot of people. Like I used to hire a lot of marginal or kind of struggling tattooers in New Orleans because it was so transient. Customers were in and out,
Right.
and you could kind of let people practice a little more,
Yeah.
and help them get better, and you'd help them get better.
And that was the thing. It was just getting in the shop and just doing the work.
Right. Well, and one person in particular, Terry Brown, piece of shit, him and his girlfriend, who wants to be me, fucking left my shop and opened a block away. What a fucking scumbag
like
move.
Here in
New Orleans.
Oh, in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, before I left. I got sick. I couldn't work every day, and these motherfuckers were getting mad.
I think that's something you do see, and it was a generation where that was starting to happen. I want to say that started happening in like the late 90s.
Yeah.
But now it's even worse because I don't think back in the 90s you knew it was wrong. If you did it in the early 90s, late 80s, you got firebombed.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Yeah.
And there is something worse than firebombs.
Yeah.
And then I think as time progresses, I think people just don't look at it as being a big deal anymore.
Well, because in their minds, they justify it. Well, I wasn't getting what I wanted. They weren't doing what I wanted, so I'm going to move up the street and do what I want. Fuck them. Well, how about all those years before you didn't get what you want, how you got what you want?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the thing is I don't think anybody sees the time that I shouldn't say that. Not certain individuals that you hire don't ever see the time that you put in and the energy you had to put in. And not to mention the fact that it's your name on the line, it's your insurance, it's everything. If anybody's going to lose anything, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
They could just fuck right off and do something else.
And, somebody does a fucked up tattoo and they do a Yelp. Who's it looking at? Me. Yeah. Not them. Nobody says it was Joe Schmo did the tattoo.
Yeah,
there is a Joe Schmo, sorry. R.I.P. They think of the shop and then they think of the owner,
right.
And look, you can't be everywhere. You can't make everybody happy. There's nothing should justify you doing something that's unethical. If somebody teaches you anything in tattooing, don't fucking shit on them. Don't badmouth them. I don't care if they fuck your wife. Don't badmouth them. That's separate. You got that knowledge in your brain. Yeah. You need to respect that person till the day you fucking die.
Yeah,
to the day you die.
You're definitely a better person than I am.
Look, Cindy, who taught me, fucked my boyfriend. Okay? It happened to me.
Right.
I didn't talk to her for a while, but I never lost respect for her.
You never lost respect for her.
And I never, ever said shit about her, except that she fucked my boyfriend. And I moved out of town.
Yeah. And
he kept coming around, and it hurt my feelings. It broke the girl code. There is a girl code too. But in the end, when I did see her again, she had cancer and she was dying.
Yeah.
And you know what? Fuck that guy.
None of that
guy was just a
point.
fucking toy. Yeah. And she just wanted to have fun. And she did. Right. And good for her, good for him, whatever. But if somebody, you just have to remember where you come from. Don't fuck these people over that are teaching you stuff, man. That's the worst thing you could do.
I think that would be a nice thing for people to remember based on the fact that where we find ourselves in the business right now, with the amount of shops, the amount of tattooers, the amount of things that are happening in the business. I've often said this, it's just simply too much. Someone needs to fucking pump the brakes and pull it back. If there's this many tattooers, as long as they're not running out and opening up a million shops, things can survive.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether or not we as tattooers have that in us to
and then my mentality is, why would you want to work alone? And here's something I found. My girlfriend is going to massage school. straight from the beginning of massage school, they tell you to go get your own studio, work on your own. I didn't know that. And I said, oh, where are you going to go work when you're done? You're going to go to Massage Envy, or are you going to go to this spa? No, why would I do that? Well, because they have built-in customers and you can learn how to run the business. Yeah. She said, oh, no, I'm going to go rent a private spot and work by yourself. How are you going to learn anything?
Not only that, especially considering what you're doing, it's like that's even more personable than a tattoo.
Well, if they're teaching that in massage school, that's what they're teaching in tattoo school.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where people are getting the idea that they have to go on their own.
And it doesn't help that you get these fucking bottom feeder pieces of shit that literally are like, I'm just going to teach you how to become a better tattooer. I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to teach. And they just fill these kids' heads up with fucking bullshit. And it's nothing more than a scam. The chances are their businesses aren't that good. They're not tattooing that much. So what do? You teach a bunch of young kids that are desperate to learn something. And before you know it, you've created another fucking nightmare. And it's shitty because it's like, I don't think there's any good way for that to go. And the worst is the more you do the diligence of finding out who these people are, 9 times out of 10 they're scumbags.
Yeah.
And all they're doing is taking money from dumb young kids.
Yeah. And I feel bad for the kids, and I wish I could help them, but it's not my job to fucking help everyone.
And especially when you're just trying to run a business and take care of your own people.
Well, and half of these motherfuckers don't even deserve to be holding a tattoo machine. Yeah. Okay, if you are scared of another person, you should not be tattooing. If you're scared of a person, wthink would you be scared of a person?
Yeah.
Like you can't go into it meeting a new person scared. These people are scared.
I don't think it's a rabbit hole we need to go down though. We start talking about like the general consensus of what we think about the people of today. We're fucked.
And you know what? Most of the people that follow me on Instagram and most of the people I tattoo nowadays at conventions are young 1 or 2 year tattooers or apprentices. Luckily, their boss told them to come meet me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thankful for that. Or there's a tattooer's wife.
Yeah.
Wants to get tattooed by me because they've heard of me or something.
But I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think that there's something to be said for knowing a little bit of the history and the fact of the matter is stepping out of what you normally think of tattooing or what tattooing has become, and you're almost kind of stepping back in time a little bit. You get a little taste of what it used to be like.
Well, and one thing I make sure when these people are in my chair and they're captive, I tell them what the rules are. I say, did you learn some ethics? Because I'm fixing to tell you what ethics are and what the morals of tattooing are. And you don't do this, and you don't do that, and you don't treat people, and you do the things that are important to us. Exactly. That I learned from Cindy and from Lou and from Jackie and from everyone around them.
Yes.
And you don't open a shop up the street. You don't shit talk your teacher. Things like that.
These are things that I think that should be known. They're just not. They're forgotten.
They're forgotten. You don't put a tattoo on somebody just to get a photo of it. It's going to be shit.
Oh, that's been something that's been since I got into this. It was all about the photo, not about the tattoo.
Oh my God. And I look at the photo, I'm like, in 10 minutes, that thing is going to look like shit. And I've even online, there on Instagram, there's a bunch of those pages, and people will post something and everybody's like, yay, this is great. And then I'll say, let me see it in 5 years. And then they shit all over me. Shut up, old lady, you old fucking washed up hag, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, whatever. I've got tattoos on me that look like that.
And that's the whole thing. It's like when you can step back from what they know and what you've seen, and you can go, no, I've done a good tattoo that may not stand out to what everybody imagines is a great tattoo, but full well in 15, 20 years, that person's not going to be upset with what they got.
And look, I've gotten tattoos that I shouldn't have got. I got this little squish penny tattoo. It's tiny. You can't even see what it is anymore. Exactly. And I show this to people all the time. And they're like, why would you get that? Well, I knew it was going to be shitty, but it marks that moment for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's how a lot of people look at things. I just don't think that they look at it from the perspective of they have to grow old with that tattoo.
Well,
I think most
they
of
don't
them
think about that.
Exactly.
Young people don't think about 5 years. They don't even think about next month.
Exactly.
They're living right now. And I heard somebody talking about why is streaming so popular. I never thought of this, but it's a symptom of what's happening with young people is they cannot fucking wait. Remember how we used to have to wait for the next Sopranos?
Yeah.
Wait a week. No, now it's everything all at once.
Everything's got to be binged, and I still don't understand that.
They cannot wait a fucking second for no. I can get you in the chair in 15 minutes. Oh, I'm gonna find somewhere else, and they're on the phone googling who can do it faster.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah, exactly.
15 minutes.
Exactly. It's never enough. It's got to be now.
So
Wow, we're really starting to rip on fucking young kids.
I'm sorry. Look, I love the customers. I'm glad they still come in. I'm glad that tattooing is popular. I'm glad that you and I have had great careers, Joe.
I can never complain. Yeah.
Everything I own was bought from tattooers. This shirt, this couch, this dog. I paid $10 for this dog from tattoo money. You know. It's the best thing in the fucking world, and I hope it doesn't change too much.
I agree, because like I said, I'm hoping to do this for another 15, 20 years, you know.
I think that if right now, it's August, end of August, if we can just hang on until after the new year, the new president's going to get in, whoever it is, I don't give a fuck who it is, because basically it doesn't affect me on my core level here in my house. I do care. I want a nice person in there, but it really doesn't affect us, and I just think hopefully things will get back to normal after January.
Yeah.
When people will settle down a little bit.
I think we can hope, and with any luck, having said that, we do both really hope that's the case.
I've been through a lot of election years, and I notice it's always bad right before it, and it's always good afterwards. People are they exhale. So whoever it is, really doesn't matter. People are going to get back to normal.
Yeah.
They're going to live their lives. We already want shit back to normal because of fucking COVID.
Oh God, yeah.
Let's just whatever the new normal is, let's just get on with it, and let's just move ahead. And people, please continue to get tattoos.
Yes.
Get good tattoos. If you can get tattooed by an old tattooer, I'd say do it.
Yes.
Because they know more. You're going to have a good time. They're not going to tattoo you with headphones on. I can't stand that.
No, it's the world we live in. But again, it's kind of the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the world we live in.
No, I get when you get tattooed by me, you're going to hear some shit.
You get the experience. That's the whole thing. That's something we've always talked about. That there's an experience to getting tattooed that you don't always get from the private studio. And there's something to be said to being in a room full of other individuals that are tattooing, and everybody's just kind of running off of each other's energy.
Yeah.
And there's really something that is lost today.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the separate rooms for tattooing.
Yeah.
You don't get to bounce ideas off people. And,
Yeah.
I'll be tattooing, and the guy that sits next to me, his client says something weird, and I'm laughing, and my client hears it, and we're giggling, and it's just fun.
Exactly.
That to me is the fun part. I would not want to be in a room alone with just my client.
No, I agree. I'm the same way. I think the same way. All right. Well, on that note, we'll call it at that. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or you're?
If you're ever in Chesapeake, Virginia, come check it out. And if you want to find me at conventions, I do a lot of the Villain Arts conventions. I'll be doing Philly, Baltimore. I'll be in Kansas City later in the year.
You're also doing Crow's show next month.
I'm doing Crow's show, the best tattoo convention ever, in Norfolk, Virginia. I think it's at the Sheridan. Oh, I hope it is.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But JD Crow. He's the most generous, kindest, most interesting person, and he's going to make a great convention. Come on out.
It's definitely an old world style convention.
But you know what? There's a lot of new people there, a lot of local shops with younger people that are killing it. And most of these people have their roots in Crow's shop in one way or another. He doesn't put up with anybody that's not a real tattooer.
The fact is, he was one of the originators of a lot of probably some of the best shows in the world.
Yeah.
And definitely looking forward to that next. It's in October. I think it's the third weekend of October.
Third weekend of October. It starts on Thursday night. There's big parties Thursday.
Yeah.
Load in, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday it's on.
Yeah.
So, and we'll have guests in our shop before and after.
Right.
So if you can't catch somebody at the show, you can come to our shop and get tattooed by Mike Wilson, or Tim Lehigh's going to be around after that.
It's an amazing lineup of artists. I'll leave everything in the description underneath. I'll have all your information for the shop and everything, and yeah, it was very nice
Thanks,
talking to
Joe.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, Joe. I mean, like a huge fan.
I appreciate it.
I've kind of fangirling right now.
Oh God,
This is
whatever.
wild.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe, and see you when I see you.
That was fun. That's a lot of fun.